6 candidates are in the running for 3 seats on Cupertino City Council. As part of the City Channel's ongoing coverage of this race towards Election Tuesday, you're about to see an up-close and personal introduction to one of those candidates. This is Candidates Q&A with hosts George Moore and Huey Huang, and featuring tonight's Cupertino City Council candidate, incumbent Sandra James.
Hello and welcome to Candidates Q&A. My name is George Moore with the Cupertino Courier Weekly.
My name is Huey Huang. I work for World Journal. It's a Chinese language daily.
This evening we are honored to have council candidate and current mayor Sandra James. Sandra, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi.
It's wonderful to be here.
Get started here right away. Is it realistic to believe Cupertino can limit growth but still provide housing solutions in the present and the future?
Oh, I think it definitely is realistic, and I think it's something that as a community we need to come together and decide, which is one of the reasons we're looking into refashioning our general plan, which by law we have to do every 5 years anyway, and our October 5th Community Congress, which I hope everybody comes to. This is our 5th year doing that. We will be talking a lot about that particular issue. There are some areas in our city that are still available for growth. A very good example, of course, is the Compact, now HP Compact property on Stevens Creek, and also the Villa Sarah property, which is on Stelling and Homestead, and the owners of the Villa Sarah project, which is an older project with a substantial amount of space, which backs up to 280, is interested in renovating and building new housing there. And that's an area that would probably facilitate some density, as would the one by Compact. But the community as a whole has to come together to decide they want housing, more housing. They've been telling us that for years, but they don't want density. And unless you're going to go out and build on the hillsides, which we don't want, and impose upon your green space, then you have to have some density. And what does that mean? It may in this city mean no more than 4 stories, or mostly 2 and 3 stories, but a little denser. Some for sale attached housing will be one of the ways that we can provide housing for new home buyers or people who want to leave their larger homes and move into smaller facilities. But I think there is a lot of flexibility, certainly not a lot of space. We're almost at build out. So we have to find a way to provide some housing. The question is how much, and a bigger question is where, and what will it look like.
Great, thank you.
Mayor James, when we look at Cupertino, we see a city of diversity. Mm-hmm. Census 2000 tell us just recently that the current population is about 50,000. Mm-hmm. In that 50,000, 44% Asian. Chinese and Chinese alone, 12,000. So we just like to know, how do you see this this evolving picture of diversity concerning cultural and ethnic groups?
Okay, well, I've lived in this city since the 1950s, so I have definitely seen a huge change. When I moved here from New York with my family, this was all orchards, and Cali Brothers had their big silo, and everybody looked alike. You're absolutely right. And now we just are a different community. And you're right, 44% of our population is of Asian descent. Of that, I think 23% is Indian. And then we have a very large Iranian group. We also have quite a few people from Israel and from Russia. We're a very unique, I believe, unique and diverse community. One of the things that I'm excited about is when we started these community congresses 5 years ago, the first 3 years, the topic of conversation and the only topic of conversation was diversity, because people in the community were having difficulty assimilating, others were having difficulty accepting, and there was a real culture shock there. So how do we all meld together and learn to live together? Not only learn to live together, but be excited about learning to live together. And the last 2 years, and this year I think you'll find the same thing, diversity is not even one of the topics that the community decides they want to discuss, because it just is who we are now. And I think we've done a wonderful job of figuring that out and learning to work and play and pray and live together in a very exciting way. I mean, I think the Moon Festival this year, which is the end of September, the Moon Festival, which is a growing festival, which has started out with a lot of criticism from parts of the community because they were uncomfortable that signs were not in English, so they didn't understand what people were doing or selling. And it has assimilated into now it's like everybody can hardly wait for the Moon Festival to come up. And this year, I'll tell you, is a really good sign of diversity. That committee has asked this person who looks like this to be the Chinese bride in the traditional bridal ceremony. And I think that with that, nobody even thinks anything about it. You know, it's just, oh, what a fun idea. The mayor, you know, she's single. Why don't we just auction her off and she can be our bride? And with the traditional bridal cloaks and the carriage. And I just think that's like a really wonderful example of how it's all changed. I do believe that. I don't think we need to talk about it like we used to. It just is. It's who we are. And I think, you know, yes, there are some people probably still uncomfortable, some of our new immigrants, you know, some of the people that have lived here forever and don't like any of the changes or are uncomfortable with the changes. Changes are frightening for people. But I really think as a community and as a city and as city leaders, we've done a really outstanding job of bridging that question and kind of moving on together.
Any plan to outreach more to the so-called new immigrant in the future?
We do a lot of
The
that. In
second
fact,
term?
the APA, Asian American Parents Association, does the immigrant dinner, which we all go to every year. And I think that all of our festivals, we certainly reach out whenever we have commission openings or anything that's going on in the city. Our new library, or our new senior center, I co-chaired that. I'm real proud of it. And we've spent a lot of time this last year trying to reach out to the immigrant population and the non-English speaking population to bring them into the senior center and to share their cultures with the seniors who are already there. And it's been very exciting and very successful. So I think it's an ongoing thing. It's kind of like the environmental issues. You know, we've done a really good job on those we have, you know, lots of open space in our parks and rec, but you have to be diligent about it.
Yeah.
Because even though you've done a good job so far, you have to maintain that, you have to enrich it, you have to add to it. So it's just an ongoing thing of who we are, you know.
Thank you.
The reduction of traffic congestion is a goal mentioned by all the other candidates. Do you think there still is a problem beyond the school obvious problem?
Well, the traffic around our schools is our hugest traffic problem. I was at a meeting last night where we met with a group of community members, TASAC, around the Lincoln, Kennedy, Monte Vista, and they came together as most groups do over a problem. This nation right now is coming together over a terrorist attack like nothing you've seen this nation do since World War II, because that's kind of often, unfortunately, what does coalesce people to come together and work together. And many of our residents and teachers and parents and students around schools are coming together and trying to help us work with the schools to do the best we can to make that a better situation. But city-wise, and I know that people have a hard time understanding this, and it isn't an excuse either, but we are actually moving traffic around the city better than we were before, 4 or 5 years ago. It's moving better. There are more cars because there's more people. So clearly there's more traffic. And I don't know what you can do about that. We work very hard to make this a more walkable city, and whenever developers come, we try to apply that, and we're trying to work on a trail system, and we try to encourage people to get out of their cars, but you can just do so much with that. There are more cars, there are more people, there are probably going to be more, you know, just because that's the way it looks. But we are moving them around the city environs better than we did before, which doesn't mean you still don't get annoyed. I live here too, waiting at a traffic light. I think the biggest problems we have right now is how do we get people to stop one parent, one child, one parent, one child, one parent, one child. You have cars down the street, around the corner, and whatever, dropping them off on their way to work or picking them up at school, and it's just causing huge, huge problems.
Do you think busing should be instigated?
Well, you know, see now, I was on the school board for 8 years, on the Cupertino School Board, as you know. So I understand the funding problems the schools have, and they do not have the money for school buses. They just simply don't. The only way you're going to get busing back is if this community wants to go out and raise money and some sort of, and then you have to understand that's just not raising money to do facilities. Now you're talking about raising money on an ongoing basis for employees, you know, for employee raises and benefits, for major infrastructure. You got major vehicles and all the people that support maintaining them and whatever. So it's not just a we'll go out one time and we'll build a building. It's if you're going to bring busing back and all that means, then you're going to have ongoing expenses. I know that the funding isn't there for the schools, and certainly the city doesn't have it. So there have to be other creative ways to do it. I think it would be wonderful, to answer your question. If I could be magic and make it happen, I'd say, let's get the school buses back. It'd be wonderful.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, my question for you is that 6 qualified people are running for the seats, but only 3 are going to make it.
Yes.
And you have more experience, and what you did, people can see. I think it's a very good winning chance. But still, I want you to say to us, what do you think you can do a better job than the others, and what is the top priority once you're re-elected on your agenda?
Okay. You know, we're doing this a week and a day after our country was attacked by terrorists. So I have to tell you, it's very difficult to concentrate and define yourself within this election, because the parameter of what's really important in the world right now is this kind of, as we know, superimposes all of that. But I do think that also is one of the reasons why I stand out a bit, in that I have proven leadership, as you said. This is the end of my 12th year in local elected office, and I can't hardly believe that, because I'm not interested in politics. I never intended to run. I just got involved as a parent in schools, and the rest is kind of history. But I love what I do, and I love working with the community. I do believe I've done a very good job, or people wouldn't keep re-electing me. This is my 4th election. But what I bring to the table is a lot of experience. And I think right now we need leadership experience. This is a time for leadership. This is a time when people are reaching out for that. And the economy is hurting very bad. And I want to tell you, federal funds, we've already used up the deficit, and we're going to be spending massive amounts of money for this war, for this invisible enemy war. And I just, saw the Theodore Roosevelt sail off this morning with 1,500 sailors on board going they don't know where. And the world is changing. The stock market isn't looking good. I want to tell you, as a city, we're going to have to take a look at our budget, and we're going to have to take a look at all the wonderful projects that we have ongoing. I go from here to a library steering committee meeting, and I don't think any of us know what's going to happen. And I think we need strong leadership with a lot of experience, with built relationships, which I bring to the table. I'm very active in the regional issues, and with a great deal of integrity. And one of the things I'm most proud of about myself is that I live my life in general as well as in public, believing strongly in honesty and integrity. So I'm real honest about how I feel. You don't always agree with me. I'll take real strong stands, particularly on issues involving youth, which is not always, the skate park is an example, which aren't always popular with everybody, but I feel strongly about, and I gather a lot of information. I'm very accessible. People know who I am, and I know this community very, very well. I think it's important that I have both the educational strength and background and the relationships in the educational community, because Cupertino is very much based on that. But I'm also a business person. I'm an HR consultant. I know the business community. I have good relationships there. And then with my fellow elected people on both the national and state level, and the private-public partnerships I forged with Silicon Valley Manufacturing Group and all the joint venture Silicon Valley and the other agencies. That just takes time to do those things. And that is what I think makes me stand out. And I do, above all, think this is a time that we need those leaders that we know and we trust and that work hard. Because we're going to take all that to bring us together and keep us together.
So 4 more years has been always in your mind, or there was a particular moment you think, hey, I want to do it again? Tell me the moment.
It's funny, because as I said, I didn't get into this. I was a parent. I was asked to serve on a committee at the district office 12 years ago, and was elected chairperson to the Budget Advisory Committee, made a presentation to that present board and superintendent, and when there was an opening on their board, they came and asked me to run. So I never thought I'd be doing this. And every 4 years, I go through the same thing, May. Because 4 years is like a long time. It's like your whole high school career or your whole college career. And I just thought that was like my first time. I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? 6 months after I was first elected, my husband died very suddenly, and my 8-year-old son and I faced a different world, kind of like you do right now. One day your world's like this, you know what, I understand how that feels. The next day, it's very different. And I thought I wouldn't be able to do this, but I did. And when 4 years were up, the community wanted me to run again. I did, and they elected me. And 4 years later, I thought, oh, I shouldn't do this anymore. I really shouldn't be spending so much time at this, but I love it. The community wanted me to run for city council, and I did. They elected me, and now here I am 4 years later, and the real thing is the job's not finished. And that's, for me, the most compelling thing. We hired, in this last 18 months, 2 years, complete new city staff minus, senior staff minus one person because of retirements. So our city manager, our public works director, our planning director, our parks and rec director, they're all new. They don't have any history here. And now Don Burnett is going off the city council, and really Michael Chang has the most history, and he's going to be gone in 2 years on term limits. So I really felt it was important to have that continuity, to have that history, to have that experience. And there are just projects we're in the middle of now that I think you need that. So that's why I decided to run one more time.
Great. Your history has shown you really care about youth development and opportunities. Are you excited about the next 4 years if you're reelected?
I'm excited about last night and the night before because I have been working so hard for 5 years ever since I saw the Parks and Rec Commission on some issues that I so wanted to have come to fruition while I was mayor, just for the fun of it. And some of them aren't going to happen, like the skate park. You know, I thought I had the skate park package all together, and then HP bought out Compact, and now we don't know what's going to happen with that, and so it's still sitting there, and I'm hoping that'll still happen. But the Teen Commission, Youth Commission, I've been wanting to do that for years, and we voted on that Monday night at the City Council meeting, and it's going to be done by the 15th of October, and this is the first year that we're going to have a Teen Youth Commission advising our City Council, you know, appointed by us, interviewed by us, and advising the City Council on issues that affect youth, which, by the way, is just about everything. So the library, the new library, which I co-chair, I mean, the teens and our young people are some of the biggest users of the library. We need their input. They need to be a part of it. Certainly any of the Parks and Rec things, but also the economic development issues, all of the different issues we have. We need their input. So we have more, the 50 students that I spoke with, you were there, George, on Monday from 3 to 5, I had like 50 students from our local high schools who came to talk to me because I invited them because the Cornerstone Project, which is the project chaired by former San Jose Mayor Susan Hammer, did a survey on youth in the county, and our local high schools, one of the questions asked was, how do you feel your city, your community, it was, values you? And within the county it was like only 13 to 15% felt that way. In our high schools, in our city, it was 10% felt that way. So I invited those students to come, representatives from all the school, and spend some time with me, and we could kind of talk. And we televised it so the whole community could hear. It was very exciting. And every one of those 50 kids signed up to be on the Teen Commission. You know, plus I think we're going to get just a lot of results for that. So I'm still want to get a teen center. I've been trying to do that forever, and it's kind of like if I could get the skate park, then we can move to the teen center. Now we have a group of young people that are really invested in government and in the community that I think can help us. The Teen Summit with law enforcement, which I wanted to do before this year was out, we'll be doing in October. That 50 students, as you know, we talked about that, and they were very excited about that. And that's just kind of sit down with law enforcement, roll up your sleeves, and let's talk about who we are. So the teens can talk to them about who they are and how they feel about law enforcement. And our law enforcement professionals can talk to the students about, this is what our job is, and this is what we do. And we can really learn from each other. And they have a pretty good relationship now, but there are issues. And I'm hoping that that will be so successful that the sheriff, Lori Smith, who's helping me with that, will be able to use that as a training tool on an annual or semi-annual basis when they rotate all of their people around. We can bring young people in, and they can have a sit-down, and that can kind of be like part of the training on how you deal with young people, particularly with the diverse nature of our young people, which is another issue because we're not having a lot of success recruiting people for law enforcement from the Asian community, for instance, and so there is not good representation there. And it would be very helpful if we could be more successful in that. So you're probably sorry you asked me about one of my favorite subjects.
Oh, no, I had-
I'll tell you the most exciting thing that happened to me yesterday. I spent I had a 6:30 to 7:30 to 9:30 meeting at Hobie's, where I usually have my morning meetings with the community. And as I was walking out to my car across the parking lot, I hear Sandy, and I look up, and here's these two teenagers with their skateboards under their arms, two young men, just starting at DN, so getting ready next week, all excited about telling me about starting school. And one of them had worked with me on one of the programs I'd worked with, and the other one didn't know me, but we talked about the skate park meeting, which is next week, and they're going to come, and they talked about wanting to get involved in the election process and how can we do that, because they're very concerned about their future right now. And that's the kind of stuff that kind of keeps me going. I mean, that was just a wonderful interaction, of what's really important, what you're really doing.
Well, this is maybe a sad question. Due to the economy, the city decided to decrease the fund for expanding the library. Yeah, and the decision upset the residents a little bit. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, it's a misnomer that we decreased, because we did not.
Oh,
when we went out for the advisory vote, it was that would you like us to spend up to $22 million? So we proposed $19 million. That is not a decrease, because we said up to $22 million. That was a maximum that was set. It was never set that what exactly. We always thought it would come somewhere between 17 and 22 million, depending on the design, the economy, whatever. So there really wasn't a decrease. It's just that people took that, and that's what's going to happen when you set a number like that. They took that maximum number as being the number. We don't even have a number yet, because the building's not designed. It's in the process of being designed. So when we went to our budget this time, we had to cut a lot of stuff, because the economy is not good, and because there are a lot of capital expenses. We have our sports center, because of ADA requirements, which we do not meet, needs to be renovated. It turned out it's going to be a very bad fiscal decision to renovate that building. It'll cost more than building a new one, so we need to do that. We had some street things. We had a lot of other stuff. So this council had to make some tough choices, and one of the things we did was in the budget we put 19 million rather than 22 million. And yes, the library steering committee, which I co-chair, was not happy with that. However, they handled it extremely well. They didn't come in and scream and holler and tell us how terrible they were. Said, what can we do about this? We're concerned. And both Richard Lowenthal, who's the vice mayor, and myself felt strongly enough about it to take it to staff and said, please try to find additional. It was actually $3 million that we took out. Please try to find an additional $3 million. Well, we couldn't. We looked and we looked. We came up with another $1 million and some other possibilities. And in that meeting, as I was sitting there with the community and the library people, and they favor, for one thing, something which the council has not approved yet, I don't know that they will, they're favoring a proposal which would actually demolish the present library building. We wanted that building built between the present library and City Hall, and so we'll need to come back to the council when that design format comes forth to see if they even want to consider it, because that adds substantial cost in that now you would have to take the present library and house it somewhere for 18 months or 2 years. Well, you built a new library. Where are you going to do that? How are you going to pay for it? We don't have city space, so how are you going to do that? Now that adds additional money to the library. So there's still big decisions to be made. But the good news is everybody's working toward that. And at that meeting, I asked the community that was sitting there, I said, okay, how many of you are willing to go out and raise some money from the community, which, by the way, we're doing it for everything else, affordable housing, the library. We keep asking the same people for help. And a number of them took it on. So Don Allen from Cupertino National Bank said he would share it. And Kathy Stakey from our Library Commission, and I forget who the other person was. It might have been Barbara Rogers, but don't quote me on that, because Barbara will kill me if it wasn't. But somebody else said they would help. And they would go out and try to raise $1 million, I think it was $1.2 million or $1.5 million, somewhere around that, to help with it. So one way or another, we'll bring it together. But by the way, we could build a very beautiful library also with the funds we have. I want to tell you, with what's happened the last week, You know, we're going to move forward with that, but there are no guarantees of what's happening in this economy right now anyway. So everybody has to be patient, and everybody has to be understanding, and everyone has to share the sacrifices in this whole nation, therefore this state, therefore this community, as we kind of move forward to see who we are and what's going on in the world. So a long answer, but the true answer is we did not cut. There was never, that was like the maximum number. It's just that everybody grabbed hold of that and said, oh, this is our number, this is our number. So it feels like that. But we will get through this. We will have a nice, wonderful library, and it'll happen when it's meant to happen as we move forward.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I think we have to wrap this up. Mayor James, thank you for taking the time to join us. And
you're quite welcome. Thank you for being here. And thank you both for being interested in this community and helping us communicate, because communication is really the most critical point in all the issues you talked about and didn't talk about.
great. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you for your straight answers.
Yeah, well, that is one thing I'm known for.
Tune in to the City Channel for local election information and coverage through the November 6th election. Program schedules can be found at various locations, including City Hall, the Cupertino Public Library, the Cupertino Scene, and the city's website. While at the website, you can find more information on City Council candidates and on Measure D. You will also find helpful links to voter information pages. Exercise your right to vote on November 6th by heading to the polls.